welcome to the book report. So, the first novel that I really wanted to review was In the House in the Dark of the Woods. However, the novel is so bad that I actually I don't want to give up on the review, but it's going to be a short one. I'll do my best to kind of dissect the novel into things, but I guess my overall review has to be, it's a cool cover, and that's where it ends, unfortunately. Very deceiving, I would want to say, like if I could chalk it down to just two words, this novel. My impressions of the novel were that it was going to be this really riveting psychological horror. It had elements to it that I almost feel like my expectations wrote the book itself, just even by the cover, which sounds shallow, but even by like the cover synopsis, I really thought that the book was going to be much more suspenseful. There was going to be much more at stake, but it was just drivel. We are introduced to a character who goes back and forth between her memories and then what's actually happening. But unfortunately, what's happening is a whole lot of nothing. It's a series of talking, wandering around, and going back to the house. That's it. There's minor characters that she bumps into, but they're extremely forgettable. Honestly, if it wasn't for the description of either their clothes or the way that they looked, they could honestly all be welded together into like one bland porridge of side characters, which is very, very sad. Important thing I think I need to include in this review is probably why my expectations weren't met. I guess the source really has to be with like the synopsis. So I need you guys to listen to this so then you can understand why I was so disappointed. Mind you, I can't blame the author. The PR team, I feel, is really good at their job because they really sold this book for me. If you guys, even in the first paragraph, okay, in this ingenious horror story set in colonial New England, a woman goes missing, or not missing. Perhaps she has fled, abandoned her family, or perhaps she's been kidnapped and set loose to wander in these dense woods of the north. Alone and possibly lost, she meets another woman in the forest. Then everything changes. Okay, so very... Honestly, when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a mystery. This is where the psychological horror is going to happen, right? This woman is possibly lost in these woods, abandoned there. There's going to be a question of the origins of why she's there. No, there isn't, guys. She purposely goes into the woods, which she reminds you at least 4 or 5 different times, that she wanders off. She wanders off into these woods. Mind you, she has flashbacks to kind of her home life. Like she has a son, she has a husband. There's numerous very exhausting flashbacks that honestly take away from, I wish they could almost take away from what's going on. That I guess what really was exhausting about it was that these memories were triggered by the most insignificant little things. And it was almost like this woman, I almost pictured every time she had a memory, it was like her losing, like going into a coma. Like almost, because she would go, it's close to a tangent, like pretty close to a tangent where like the slightest thing would happen, it would trigger her into a memory of her son, and then we're there for 2 or 3 pages, and then we're pulled back into the present of nothing happening. There's talking, there's walking, and there's running away. Those are the 3 main events that have happened in the novel. None of them, which by the way are scary or life-threatening. There's definitely auras that are happening, like kind of the character tells you that she's unsettled. She tells you that she needs to go back home. That I guess the thing that imagery wise would be kind of slightly disturbing would be that her feet are bleeding. You know, I'm really reaching on this one. I really didn't want to give up on this story. I guess that's why my reaction is as volatile, I guess, as it is, because I really had high hopes for this novel. Unfortunately, it really dug, it really got under my skin how someone could write so much and say so little. You know, this character has no personality. Every character that you come across, I mentioned, has a very bland perspective on kind of the way that the world works, or the way they're almost all sage-like, where they're all more or less trying to fight for her soul or fight for who she is, her identity, things like that. Unfortunately, there needs to be a lot less head games, and I feel that's what the novel is trying to do. They're trying to, which I was all for at the beginning. I really like the idea of the woods almost being like this framework for her mind, or for who she is, and the deeper that she goes in, the more complicated it gets. However, it's just complicated in the sense of like, as a reader, that it should reflect in the characters and with the actions that are going on, not in the story that is just a big old mess. I feel like you could write this story in a way where the woods could reflect torment. It could reflect someone getting lost in their past or something like that. But that needs to be paired up with action, with creatures, with anything but going in, meeting people, and running away. That is the event, the cyclical event over and over. Also, I haven't mentioned the well. That is the big, I guess, catalyst for, I guess, the main bad guy, the twist, is that she falls in a well. She finds a magical object. Boring. So boring. Just don't... I feel like there was so much potential, especially with a wolf on the cover, man. Like, I was expecting her... I guess my imagination went where there was this beast in the woods and she had to battle the beast, and you know what? That was my fault. I let my imagination do the work. I should have really given the book a chance in its own. And I'm disappointed. I feel it had potential of being like what it's advertised, the psychological horror, and it's really not. I guess that's why I really wanted to keep this review. So then, because it's one thing checking it out of a library, it's another to spend $20 on something that it's not advertised. It's not what it's advertising, guys. Like, don't fall into this kind of trap where unfortunately, I did in that way with my time. Time is a bit more precious than money, but a lot more precious, actually. But don't fall into the trap that I did, where I'm trying to push myself through a novel, expecting it to be something that it's not, just because of the synopsis. Unfortunately, it just really didn't match up. So yeah, wanted to give you guys that last bit, and see you next review.